why do you want to help people succeed in IELTS reading?
I just want to prove to all the candidates out there that we can do it. As non-native speakers, we can all achieve a band 9 for reading in the IELTS test.
How are you going to do it?
I think we can all do it with the right strategies and a lot of practice. And today, I'm gonna share my own experience, my own journey to get 9, not once, but 3 times in IELTS reading.
We have Trang with us today, a very special guest who has scored a band 9 in the official IELTS exam in the reading section, not once, twice, but 3 times. Welcome, Trang.
Hey everybody, I'm Trang. I'm back here today to talk about reading.
It's great to have you. Trang, first question.
Yes.
Why would you sit the IELTS exam 3 times, even when you're getting these really high scores?
Okay, I don't remember if I have mentioned it, but I have sat the IELTS exam 6 times in total over the course of 10 plus years, because I wanted to see how my real English ability can be reflected in the IELTS test. So it's not like I did it over a short period of time, but I did it periodically. And for the last 3 times, I got 9 for reading.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And we're dying to find out how you actually did that. So I'm excited to have you here, and we will ask you a few questions and use a sample script from our premium IELTS course to connect some of these concepts to real questions, especially those very scary list of headings, true, false, not given, and multiple choice that so many students seem to struggle with. We will include the passage and the questions in the video description below for those of you who would like to have a careful read so you understand a little bit more of what's going on and what we're connecting to. Having gotten band 9 3 times, Trang, would you say that the reading section is the easiest for you?
Yes, probably. Between reading and listening, I think I find them the sections that I'm the most comfortable with.
And why is that?
I think because I read and listen to a lot of English content in real life as well, so I'm pretty confident with my 2 skills when it comes to reading and listening.
So that's the comprehension side of language, of course, right? So understanding the language, and many students, many English speakers have these situations where they listen and they read a lot, and it's more challenging, of course, to speak or to write because other native speakers are needed for that. Now let me ask you, what did you do to get good at reading?
When I was in college, because I attended an international course, even though I was studying at a Vietnamese university, it's still an international course, which means that I was studying in English. That's why I had to read a lot of textbooks as well as research papers in English. And that's when I started to develop my comprehension skills.
Would you say that technical English learned from textbooks, is good practice to increase band scores on the IELTS exam, specifically the academic IELTS exam?
Oh, yes. I think that if you're exposed to a lot of English in the academic context, right? So it will be easier for you because it's closer to the text that they use in the IELTS exam.
So what subjects do you read about?
In real life, I follow quite a few subjects from culture and fashion to finance, business, marketing, because those are my fields of work as well. And sometimes I also read about technology.
Is there a difference between the content that you read in real life versus the topics of the passages and the content in the IELTS exam?
Yeah, I think there are quite a lot of differences between the two types of content. And the biggest difference I can see, IELTS reading materials are unnaturally complicated in a way. When we look at the text, the sample IELTS reading materials that you sent me earlier, currency substitution, I think that the majority of test takers are students, and they have probably never seen this topic before in their life. But that's why we need to prepare for any subject that comes up in the IELTS test.
What would you recommend for time management for people sitting the IELTS? That tends to be one of the areas of challenge for a lot of the candidates. They feel that there's not enough time for the reading section. What's your answer to that?
Oh, I guess so. I guess that time management is a big challenge for a lot of candidates out there. In my case, I don't really manage time that well personally, but when I took the test, fortunately, I think the last 2 times it took me like 5 to 7 minutes for passage 1 and then more time for the next sections. But I think in general we should divide the duration of the test into 3 parts, but I'm not sure if we should divide equally, because I think that the second passage and the third passage are more difficult than the first one. Do you think?
Yeah, IELTS is designed that way, so it's progressively more and more difficult. The listening section's like that.
That's right.
The speaking questions are like that as well. And even the writing. Writing task 1 is meant to be easier than writing task 2. So you're absolutely correct. And so even though, you know, they say you should spend about 20 minutes on each passage, that doesn't actually mean you should spend 20 minutes on each passage, but it's often a better idea to spend a bit more time on passage 3. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. So I think regarding time management, you don't have to divide equally among the 3 passages, but I think that you shouldn't linger too long at one question. For example, in my case, if I can't answer one question after spending like a few minutes there, then I will definitely move on to the next question, and then I will go back to the question, the unanswered question again after.
And what would you say are your least favorite kinds of questions, and why?
Oh, my least favorite? I think it's the true, false, not given type.
Why is that?
Because I think I tend to get confused between false and not given. I don't know if it's the case for other candidates as well.
It is, and there are some very good strategies for that. I'm going to link a video, if you check the card, which explains how to overcome that confusion for the true, false, not given. Now, the passage that we included in this video in the description also has these true, false, not given questions, and I will go over these in the lesson and explain this in greater detail. How about list of headings? What's your opinion about those types of questions?
Oh, yes. A list of headings can be a headache as well. But
no pun intended,
yes,
right?
Yes, no pun intended. It's easier than true, false, not given for me, but it's definitely more difficult than fill in the blank, because it means that you have to read the whole thing, right? Maybe not in depth, but you have to have a look over all the paragraphs in a passage, and then you have to read all the headings and then try to match them with each other. And sometimes it can be challenging for me to do so. I don't know, maybe because when I took the IELTS test, I was working under pressure, right? So it's like I couldn't grasp, or I couldn't remember the information that I was reading at the time. So it can, yes, it can be a headache.
That's a very common situation. We get this from our students all the time, that, you know, I understand the English, I read it, but I don't remember it. I feel stressed. And we do have solutions for that, and there are some great strategies for a list of headings and how to identify the correct answers. So again, I will speak in more detail about that shortly. And you're right, Trang, you do have to read the whole paragraph to figure out the correct heading. There's often misleading choices that can be quite stressful at times as well. Now, what is your single most important tip for tackling the...
Oh yes, one single tip. It's really hard to choose, because I think all of the things I can't drop any of the strategies or tactics that I used. But if I were to give just one tip, I don't know. I'm torn between reading several times and double checking. What do you think? I think they are, I don't know, more or less equally important.
And more or less equal. Double checking is looking at your answers twice. Reading multiple times is looking at the text twice.
Yeah.
So I think both together work great.
Yeah, it goes together, right?
Absolutely. Now, for that, obviously fluency is very important. So reading fluency. And so let's just connect a little bit to this. How can a candidate develop that level of fluency where they have the time to read the questions and the passage multiple times? What would you recommend people do to improve their speed or their fluency of reading literacy?
Yeah, for the speeding, I can only speak from my own experience. And what worked for me is that I read a lot. I made a habit of reading in English on a daily basis. And I think it's probably the most natural or effective way to gradually but sustainably improve or enhance your reading fluency. Because
now, would you say that you read mostly topics that interest you, or topics that you have to read, or a combination of both?
At first, when I was kind of getting used to reading in English, I chose the topics that I had a real interest in. But as time went by, I know that the only way to broaden my horizons, right, to widen my range of knowledge in general, I need to read a variety of topics, including the ones that I personally don't like.
Like currency substitution?
Right, yes, like, no, but for this topic particularly, I actually have a great interest in currency. Yes, because finance is my background. So
and most people like money.
Yes, right. So if you are currently not liking currency and finance, you should.
Right?
Yeah.
Of course. That's always good advice. What advice would you give to others for improving their reading skills?
If you ask me, it always comes back to reading a lot. Reading a lot of materials, real materials, articles, books, what have you. Because I think reading in real life is a beneficial skill, is an essential skill. So it's not just like you practice reading, you practice the mock test to prepare for the IELTS test, but you should really read a lot in real life. And yeah, maybe you can see if my way of trying to make a habit out of reading in English works for you. Start with the things that interest you, and then broaden the range of the materials you read.
Beyond a lot of reading, how do you recommend individuals to tackle challenging vocabulary in text?
Let me see. I think in my experience, I try not to look up words in the dictionary every single time I come across a word that I don't know in an article that I'm reading at the time. I try to guess the meaning from the context, from the whole article. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it may take more time that way, but I think it will also help you to develop a skill to
mm-hmm.
understand the meaning in English instead of having to translate the word mm-hmm. into your native language, if that makes sense.
Very useful advice. Very useful advice. From your experience, Trang, how important do you feel it is for individuals to read aloud at times instead of just silently reading?
Oh, I'm trying to remember if I ever really read aloud. I did. I definitely did. But I don't know if it's for reading or I was trying to improve my pronunciation.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, all kidding aside, in my opinion, I think reading aloud helps. Yeah, it can be beneficial to read aloud.
And it can help pronunciation, right?
Right. So two birds with one stone, as you say, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's right.
I think when you read aloud, it kind of reminds your brain in a way, like you will remember the vocabulary better, I think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we call it multiple sensory integration. So when you're reading silently, you're really only using your eyes for processing the information. When you're reading aloud, you're combining the use of touch, because you're actually moving your mouth, your jaw, your tongue. You're combining that with your eyes, obviously, and as well as your ears for the sound. So you're using not one, but at least three of your senses to incorporate that information into memory. So it tends to be a lot more effective, but it takes practice. So I'm glad that you agree and you do recommend, even though you might not do it often, you have done it, and not necessarily for the purpose of reading, but for practice, which is obviously extremely useful.
No, as you said it, with all the fancy explanations and scientific explanations, may I add, I think mm-hmm. it makes perfect sense for me. And now I can recall reading aloud for the sake of reading as well, because yes, I was trying to remember earlier, but yes, as you said, it is more beneficial when like all of your senses, right, work towards a common goal of trying to remember the words, trying to making sense of the things that you're reading. Yeah, so I definitely reading aloud for the sake of pronunciation and reading at the same time. I just want to make that clear on record.
Thank you, Trang, so much for your valuable insight and sharing your story. I'm not sure if I will ever meet another person who has actually scored a band 9 in the reading section 3 times on the IELTS. We will include notes in the video description about the most important strategies and tactics that we discussed, and we will also include a link to Trang's blog, so that if you would like to find out more and get more information, then you can visit Trang there and discover about reading and about other parts of the IELTS exam as well. Thank you, Trang.
Yes, thank you, Adrian, for having me. And I'm really glad that my experience and my personal take on the IELTS can help the students in some way to better understand the IELTS test, combined with your professional or your expertise. I hope that viewers can take away something valuable from our talk today.
And beyond that, I think motivation, Trang. You're definitely motivating a lot of people around the world who tend to feel at times that it's impossible to get these perfect band 9s, or that only native speakers can get these perfect band 9s. And it's a pleasure to have you here with us and to showcase that indeed this is achievable with the right mindset and the right strategies. Now, for lots more videos like this, please do visit our premium IELTS package. It is a one-time payment for lifetime access, and you can use the code currency9 for a 10% discount. We're an IDP partner, a British Council affiliate. I'm a certified British Council agent, and Trang is a band 9 successful IELTS candidate. Thank you, everybody, and good luck the next time you sit your IELTS exam. Subscribe to our channel. Click over here. Watch another video. Click right up here. And click our IELTS Hero to join our premium package and get access to all of our videos, practice exams, and a fully interactive course.